You can have everything you once wished for: success, connection, comfort, and still feel an emptiness you can't explain. You can chase goals, relationships, even spiritual milestones, and find yourself wondering, why does fulfillment still feel just out of reach? The truth is, the peace you are seeking was never meant to be found outside. It has always lived inside you, patient, quiet, waiting beneath the noise. Life didn't fail you. You didn't fail life. You were simply taught to look in the wrong place. This is not a journey of becoming more. It is a journey of becoming less burdened, less tangled, less lost. It is a journey of remembering the freedom you were born with, the joy that doesn't depend on winning, achieving, or being seen. Let us begin, not by changing who you are, but by uncovering who you have always been. Freedom was never meant to be earned through control. Peace was never meant to be found by perfecting the world around you. Joy was never meant to depend on circumstances beyond your grasp. These treasures have always lived inside you, buried beneath layers of fear, expectation, and the endless demands of a restless mind. This journey is not about adding anything new to yourself. It's about uncovering what was already there. Like a seed waiting quietly beneath the frozen ground, your inner freedom requires only the warmth of awareness to bloom. In the teachings of Buddhism, we are reminded that suffering doesn't arise from what happens. It arises from our attachment to how we think things should happen. The mind constructs stories, ideals, identities, and then clings to them, panicking when life refuses to follow the script. This clinging is not just a habit. It is the root of our deepest pain. Yet there is a way out. Not by fighting harder. Not by winning the battles we have been taught to wage against the world, against others, even against ourselves. True freedom begins the moment you stop struggling and start seeing. Seeing the mind's games for what they are. Seeing the ways expectation disguises itself as necessity. Seeing how often you have traded your peace for illusions that were never real to begin with. Opening the door to inner freedom means stepping out of the endless cycle of reactivity. It means recognizing that every judgment, every fear, every craving that rises inside you is not a command to obey, but a visitor to observe. It means learning to trust in something quieter and deeper than the mind's frantic voice. The silent spaciousness that has always been present underneath the noise. This journey does not require you to become someone else. It invites you to remember who you were before the world told you who you needed to be. It invites you to release the heavy armor you thought was protecting you, but was only keeping you trapped. It invites you to stop living as a reaction to life and start living as an expression of your truest nature. There is a simplicity on the other side of complexity, a stillness on the other side of striving, a quiet strength on the other side of letting go. And the beauty of this path is that it is always available. You don't have to wait until life becomes easier, until you are less busy, less burdened, less broken. You can begin right here, right now, exactly as you are. In the coming chapters, we will walk together through the mirrors of the mind, the invisible strings that tug at your peace, the illusions of control that exhaust you, and the expectations that quietly poison your joy. We will explore how to sit with discomfort without becoming it, how to loosen your grip without losing your passion, how to care deeply without clinging desperately. This is not a journey of withdrawal from the world. It is a journey of awakening within it. A way of living that does not depend on perfect circumstances, but on perfect awareness. A way of being that does not harden against life's storms, but remains open, fluid, and grounded, like the sky embracing the passing clouds without ever being touched by them. The door to inner freedom is not locked. It was never locked. It has only been hidden behind layers of habit, fear, and forgetting. To open it, you do not need to force anything. You simply need to return to yourself, patiently, gently, with the kind of fierce compassion you would offer a lost child who has finally found their way home. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not too late. The peace you seek is already seeking you. Let us begin. The mirror of the mind. Why we react to everything. The mind, when left undisturbed, is like a mirror, clear, open, and reflective. It does not judge what appears before it. It does not cling to beauty or recoil from ugliness. It simply reflects. Yet for most of us, this clarity is rarely experienced. Instead, the mirror becomes clouded with layers of expectation, memory, fear, and longing. We no longer see life as it is. We see it filtered through the residue of what we wish or dread it would be. Every reaction we have is not to life itself, but to the story our mind tells about life. A passing comment feels like a wound, not because the words are sharp, but because they brush against an old bruise we've carried too long. A moment of neglect cuts deeper than necessary because it mirrors a hidden fear that we are not enough, not valued, not safe. The world merely moves as it does. It is the mind that resists, judges, and interprets events into battles for its own survival. Buddhist wisdom reminds us, suffering arises not from events, but from our attachment to them. It is not the insult that wounds us. It is the belief that we must be respected to be whole. It is not the loss that breaks us. It is the belief that what we had defined who we are. This resistance, the tightening around how it should be, is what clouds the mirror, distorting everything we experience. The mind, conditioned by years of striving, comparison, and fear, reacts automatically. A word, a glance, a forgotten text message, and suddenly the mirror shudders with waves of insecurity and anger. We do not react because reality is cruel. We react because our illusions about reality have been threatened. The tighter we hold these illusions, the need to be right, the need to be admired, the need to be understood, the more violently we react when life does not comply. But there is a space, a sacred pause, between stimulus and reaction. In that tiny space, there is freedom. Freedom to notice, to breathe, to see clearly before the mirror distorts once again. Mindfulness is not about suppressing emotions. It is about seeing them arise, understanding their roots, and choosing not to let them pull us into unnecessary suffering. To react blindly is to let the mind's old wounds dictate the present. To respond with awareness is to polish the mirror, to return to clarity. Ask yourself in moments of agitation, what am I defending? Is it my pride? My image? My longing to be affirmed? What expectation has just been pierced? Often, you will find that the external event is minor. It is the internal narrative, silent, ancient, that roars to life, demanding protection. And yet, most of what we defend is not our true self, but a fragile, imagined identity. The mirror does not need to fix the reflections it receives. It does not need to edit reality to feel complete. It simply remains open and still. In the same way, when we stop clinging to how we think life must unfold, we begin to experience life more purely, without distortion, without the endless turbulence of unmet expectations. Imagine a pond disturbed by wind. The surface ripples and dances, but beneath, the water remains calm. Your mind, too, can be this way. Surface thoughts and emotions may stir, but the deeper mind, the pure awareness, remains unmoved. To live from that deeper stillness is to reclaim the mirror's natural clarity. Life will not stop offering you fingerprints, smudges, moments of pain or frustration. People will continue to misunderstand, disappoint, ignore. Events will continue to unfold beyond your control. But suffering is not in the fingerprints. It is in the frantic rubbing, the desperate attempt to erase what simply is. Peace arises not when life becomes easier, but when we stop insisting it be different. To polish the mirror is not to protect it from life. It is to free it from the dust of clinging. It is to breathe, to observe, to loosen the grip of old narratives that no longer serve you. It is to trust that your worth is not diminished by criticism, nor your peace stolen by rejection, unless you believe it must be. The mirror does not argue with the image. It does not grasp for permanence or fear change. It reflects and it lets go. And in that effortless letting go, it remains whole. In the same way, you are not here to control every reflection. You are here to see clearly, respond wisely, and remain anchored in the quiet certainty of your own being. The less you react, the more you reflect. The more you reflect, the less the world can shake the foundation of your peace. Your mind was always meant to be a mirror, not a battlefield. Let it return to what it knows: openness, stillness, clarity. Let the dust settle. Let the water still. And in that stillness, rediscover the freedom that was never lost, only forgotten. The puppet strings, invisible forces that control you. You walk through your day thinking you are free. You make choices, you set goals, you respond to what life brings. But beneath the surface, subtle strings are pulling you. Strings you can barely see, but whose pull you feel in every hesitation, every anxiety, every restless decision you make. These strings are not made of rope or steel. They are woven from fear, from the hunger for approval, from the desperate need to control what cannot be controlled. They are invisible, but their grip is real. And unless you notice them, they quietly dictate your every move. You check your phone not because you need to, but because you fear missing out. You say yes to obligations that exhaust you because you fear disappointing someone. You work long hours, not from passion, but from a deep, unexamined fear that you are not enough unless you are productive. And all the while, the mind whispers that you are making choices. But choices made from fear are not freedom. They are compulsion disguised as will. Buddhism teaches that true liberation begins with seeing things as they are. Not as you wish them to be, not as you fear they might become, but as they actually are. And the truth is, much of our suffering comes not from reality itself, but from the invisible stories we have attached to reality. You are not overwhelmed because life is inherently overwhelming. You are overwhelmed because somewhere inside, you believe you must do it all, please everyone, achieve perfection. You are not hurt because someone disappointed you. You are hurt because you expected something different, believed it was owed to you, and the gap between expectation and reality feels like betrayal. The mind is a master storyteller. It creates entire worlds of should, must, and if only, then ties your peace to their fragile existence. Every should you believe is another string tied around your heart. Every must you cling to is another chain on your mind. And every if only you rehearse is another rope pulling you away from the quiet simplicity of the present moment. Imagine yourself as a puppet suspended by 1,000 fine threads. Some threads are spun from childhood fears, fear of being unloved, unseen, unworthy. Others are woven from cultural narratives, what it means to be successful, acceptable, strong. Others still are stitched from personal experiences of hurt and rejection. Each thread pulls subtly, persistently, shaping the direction of your life without your conscious consent. But there is a way to loosen the knots. It begins by seeing them. Awareness is the first knife. When you name the string, you weaken its hold. When you notice, this is my fear of rejection pulling me, or this is my need for validation tugging at me, you create a gap, a space where freedom can enter. Without awareness, you react automatically, dancing to the pull of every invisible string. With awareness, you begin to respond consciously, choosing actions aligned with your deeper values, not your hidden fears. Minimalism, in its truest form, is not just about owning fewer possessions. It's about carrying fewer illusions. Emotional minimalism is saying, I do not have to believe every fear. I do not have to obey every craving. I do not have. To dance for approval that does not nourish my soul. Consider this. Every time you feel stressed, anxious, or drained, pause and ask yourself, what string is pulling me right now? Maybe it's the fear of missing an opportunity. Maybe it's the need to prove your worth. Maybe it's the old story that you are not allowed to rest until you have earned love. By identifying the string, you make it visible. And what is seen can be questioned. What is questioned can be untangled. What is untangled can finally be let go. This process is not about cutting yourself off from life. It's about stepping into life more consciously. It's about moving from being a puppet to being a participant, someone who chooses, not someone who is pushed by unseen forces. The Buddha taught that freedom is not achieved by escaping the world, but by escaping the illusions that entangle the mind. The world will always move and shift. People will always have opinions. Success and failure will continue to cycle. But when you stop anchoring your self-worth to these external currents, you stop being dragged by them. You cannot stop the winds from blowing, but you can learn to plant your roots deeper into the earth of your own awareness. You can learn to move with the winds without being carried away. Every string you untangle is a small act of rebellion against a lifetime of conditioning. Every illusion you release brings you closer to the quiet center that has always been there, waiting, patient, free. You are not here to dance for approval. You are not here to perform for perfection. You are not here to live according to a script handed to you by fear, family, or society. You are here to wake up, to cut the strings, to remember what it feels like to move freely, not because you must, but because you choose. The invisible strings lose their power the moment you stop pulling against them. Freedom does not come from winning the struggle. It comes from stepping off the stage entirely, laying down the puppet strings, and walking out into the open air of your own life. You have always been more than the stories pulling at you. You have always been more than the roles assigned to you. And every small moment of awareness, every pause, every breath of clarity, is a small return to that freedom. Let the strings fall. Your life is waiting. The art of letting go. How freedom begins. You spend so much of your life holding on to people, to outcomes, to identities that no longer reflect who you are. You grip tightly, thinking that if you can just hold everything in place, your relationships, your reputation, your future, you'll finally feel safe. But have you noticed? The tighter you hold, the heavier it all becomes. And somewhere along the way, you forget what your hands feel like when they're open. Letting go sounds simple, but for most of us, it feels terrifying. We've been taught that if we release control, we'll fall apart. That if we stop trying, we'll lose everything. That surrender is weakness, and effort is the proof of our worth. But Buddhist wisdom turns that belief on its head. It tells us that freedom doesn't come from holding on tighter. It comes from letting go. To let go does not mean to give up. It does not mean you stop caring or stop showing up. Letting go means releasing the illusion that you can, or should, control what happens. It means softening your grip on how you think life must unfold. It means recognizing that peace is not found in certainty, but in your relationship to uncertainty. Why is letting go so hard? Because the ego believes its survival depends on attachment. It ties your worth to being chosen, to being right, to being in control. It whispers that if you stop managing everything, something will fall apart, maybe even you. But the deeper truth is this: you were never in control to begin with. Control is a story the mind tells to feel safe. But life moves as it does, and no amount of worry or resistance can stop it from changing. Freedom begins the moment you stop arguing with reality. The moment you say, I don't have to carry this anymore. The moment you realize that you can love someone and still let them go. That you can care deeply without clinging. That your worth is not dependent on how much you endure, how much you prove, or how perfectly your plans unfold. In Buddhist teachings, suffering is not caused by what we lose, but by our attachment to keeping it. A flower blooms, then withers. The sun rises, then sets. People come into your life, and sometimes they leave. None of this is personal. It's the rhythm of impermanence, the truth that everything changes. And the more we resist that truth, the more we suffer. Letting go is not a one-time event. It's a practice, a moment-by-moment willingness to release what no longer serves your peace. The grudge you've carried for years, the image of who you thought you had to be, the expectation that someone else will finally make it right. Letting go means saying, I choose peace over control. I choose presence over perfection. This practice is not passive. It requires great courage. To let go is to stand in the middle of chaos and choose calm. It is to stop chasing what drains you and trust that what's meant for you will stay without force. It is to open your clenched fist and allow life to place something new in your palm, something unexpected, something lighter. There will be days when your mind tells you to grip tighter, when fear disguises itself as responsibility, when your old patterns whisper that letting go means you'll be forgotten, unloved, or left behind. But the more you listen to stillness, the more you'll realize that those voices are echoes, not truth. Real strength is not in holding on. It's in knowing what to hold and what to release. It's in choosing clarity over chaos, inner stillness over external approval. And that strength doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It breathes. It watches. It allows. Imagine walking through life with open hands, not clinging, not chasing, just receiving what comes and releasing what goes. How much lighter would you feel? How much freer? The art of letting go isn't about caring less. It's about caring wisely. It's not about turning away from life. It's about turning toward life with trust, not tension. Letting go doesn't mean you no longer feel. It means you no longer drown. It means allowing the waves to move through you without pulling you under. It means learning to say, this moment is enough, even if it's not perfect, even if I don't understand it, even if it hurts. Each time you let go, you return to yourself, to the part of you that existed before the fear, before the need to prove, before the pressure to perform. And from that place, everything becomes clearer. You begin to see that peace isn't a reward for effort. It's what remains when effort drops away. You don't have to force life to cooperate. You don't have to hold everything together. You don't have to earn your right to rest. Letting go is not the end of something. It's the beginning of everything that matters. Clarity, stillness, freedom. So take a breath. Feel the tension in your shoulders, the weight in your chest, the story in your mind. And ask yourself, gently, what am I still gripping that I no longer need? Then open your hand. Freedom begins here. Becoming the sky, a shift beyond thought. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices them. This truth sounds simple, even poetic, but living it changes everything. The mind is loud, persistent, convincing. It tells stories all day long about who you are, what others think of you, what might go wrong, what should have happened differently. And the more you believe these thoughts, the more you become entangled in a reality that exists only in your head. But there is another way of being, a shift that does not come from thinking harder or solving more, but from stepping back and seeing thoughts for what they truly are, passing clouds in a vast sky. Most people live like they are the clouds. When a storm of anxiety or fear appears, they say, I am anxious or I am afraid. But the moment you identify with a thought or emotion, you lose the spaciousness of your being. You shrink down into the storm and forget the sky. The sky has never been anxious. It has never been afraid. It has simply allowed the weather to pass. This is what mindfulness teaches, not to suppress your thoughts, but to witness them. Not to escape your emotions, but to feel them without becoming them. When you understand that you are the sky, not the weather, You begin to live with a kind of grounded lightness. Life still moves. Thoughts still come. Emotions still rise and fall, but they no longer carry you away. Buddhist practice calls this the path of awareness, and it begins with a quiet revolution, noticing your thoughts without obeying them. Your mind may say, "They don't respect me," or "I'll never be enough," or "What if everything goes wrong?" But none of these are facts. They are echoes of past experiences, projections of imagined futures. The moment you stop treating thoughts as truth, you begin to find peace, not because life changes, but because your relationship to life changes. This shift is subtle but profound. It does not ask you to fix yourself. It asks you to notice that there is nothing wrong with you in the first place. That most of your pain does not come from what's happening, but from what your thoughts say about what's happening. A short reply becomes rejection. A challenge becomes failure. A pause becomes a threat. And before you know it, you're spiraling, reacting not to life, but to the mind's interpretation of it. Freedom begins the moment you say, "This is just a thought," not with anger, not with dismissal, but with gentle recognition. You do not need to argue with the cloud. You simply let it pass. And the more you practice this, the more you begin to live in the sky, not untouched by life, but no longer consumed by it. You might wonder, if I don't believe my thoughts, what do I believe? The answer is presence. You believe what is here now, your breath, your heartbeat, the feel of your feet on the ground. These are not stories. They are truth. They are anchors to the present, to the only moment that ever truly exists. When you live from this place, you respond instead of react. You observe instead of absorb. And slowly, the storms lose their power. This shift does not require perfection. You will still forget. The mind will still tempt you. But every time you remember, you strengthen the muscle of awareness. And over time, the space between thought and self grows wider. You find yourself less entangled, less triggered, more at peace. In this space, healing happens, not because the pain vanishes, but because it no longer defines you. You may still feel sadness, but you are no longer the sadness. You may still feel fear, but you are no longer imprisoned by it. You are the sky, open, vast, unchanged. There's a certain dignity that comes with this knowing, a quiet confidence. You no longer need to prove yourself to the world or silence the mind completely. You simply return again and again to the spaciousness within you. And from that space, clarity flows in, not always in words, but in a sense of stillness, in knowing without needing to explain. You don't have to chase peace. You only have to stop running after every thought. You don't have to force quiet. You only have to stop shouting over the silence that is already there. You are not broken. You are not your worst moment or your loudest fear. You are the one who sees, who feels, who remains. So the next time your mind fills with judgment, panic, or shame, pause. Imagine the thought as a cloud. Watch it drift. Feel your feet on the earth. Remember the sky. And know that you are not here to control the weather, but to become the space in which all things come and go. This is not escape. It's presence. It's not detachment from life. It's intimacy with what is real. You are not the storm. You are the sky that watches it pass. The discipline of less, doing fewer things better. There is a quiet power in choosing less. In a world that shouts for more speed, more productivity, more achievement. There is something profoundly rebellious about slowing down, simplifying, and doing one thing with full attention. We have been conditioned to believe that our worth is measured in how much we can produce, how much we can juggle, how much we can push. But what if the real mastery of life isn't in the piling up, but in the letting go? The mind, when scattered across a dozen tasks, loses its clarity. It becomes foggy, restless, reactive. But when focused, it sharpens like a blade. When your energy is no longer divided, your presence deepens. What you do becomes more intentional, more honest, more alive. In Buddhist tradition, there is a deep reverence for this kind of attention. One breath, taken with full awareness, is worth more than 1,000 empty ones. One act done with mindfulness becomes a meditation, a sacred offering, rather than a routine. Doing less is not laziness. It is discipline. It is the conscious choice to prioritize depth over speed, presence over pressure, essence over appearance. It takes far more courage to say no than to say yes to everything. It takes inner clarity to know what truly matters and a steady heart to let go of what doesn't. The world around you will tempt you to scatter. Notifications ping. Opportunities appear. People ask for more than you can give. And somewhere in the rush, you start to feel thin, like you're present everywhere and yet deeply nowhere. But you were not made to live at the pace of algorithms. You were made to move with the rhythm of breath, body, being. Life is not a race to be won. It is a moment to be fully entered. So what does doing fewer things, better, actually look like? It looks like pausing before you say yes. It looks like choosing 3 things that truly align with your values today and letting the rest wait. It looks like turning off distractions so you can be fully with the task or person in front of you. It means putting your phone away during dinner, giving your full presence to the conversation, and realizing that nothing urgent is happening on the screen that's more valuable than what's unfolding in real time. There is a kind of wealth that comes from presence. It's not financial, but soulful. When you give your attention fully, you begin to feel richer, not in things, but in meaning. And when you stop giving your time and energy to everything, you start giving it to what actually matters. Your mind stops spinning. Your nervous system slows. Your life starts to feel like yours again. The wisdom traditions all speak to this in different ways. In Buddhism, it's about mindful living. In Christianity, it's the still, small voice. In Stoicism, it's clarity of intent. And in all of them, there is a thread of truth. The one who can sit in silence, who can act without needing to rush, who can say this is enough, even when more is available, has found a deeper kind of strength. There is humility in doing less. You admit you cannot be everywhere, do everything, please everyone. And that's not a weakness, it's a return to honesty. There is grace in slowing down, the kind of grace that allows you to feel your own life. Again, to taste your food, to hear your child's voice, to breathe without chasing the next moment. In this simplicity, beauty arises. What's essential reveals itself. What was noise falls away. And what remains is a life that feels lighter, not because it's empty, but because it's no longer crowded with what doesn't serve you. So ask yourself, what can I let go of today that's draining my energy but adding no real value? What have I been doing out of habit or pressure rather than meaning or love? And what would it feel like to give myself permission to do less, but to do it with the fullness of my being? This is the discipline of less. Not minimalism as a trend, but as a path back to clarity. Not simplicity as a performance, but as an inner alignment. It is a form of compassion for yourself and for the life that wants to live through you. Because the truth is, you don't need more time. You need fewer distractions. You don't need to be more efficient. You need to be more present. You don't need to do more. You need to do what matters and do it well. And in that space of less, you will find not emptiness, but peace. Not lack, but presence. Not pressure, but purpose. The Silent Witness: How to End Inner Drama. Most of the noise you hear each day doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from within. It's the inner commentary that never stops, the mental theater that turns small events into elaborate stories. A short message becomes rejection. A delay becomes disrespect. A misunderstanding becomes betrayal. The mind takes neutral moments and spins them into dramas that pull you away from peace, and you don't even realize it's happening because you're not just watching the story, you're in it. You're the main character, the director, the critic, all at once. But here is a quiet truth. You are not the story. You are not even the one thinking the thoughts. You are the awareness that sees the thoughts arise and pass away. You are the space in which the mind plays its endless movie, and you have the choice to stop getting caught in the script. In Buddhism, this space is the foundation of practice. It's the home you return to again and again, the stillness beneath the storm. When you sit with your thoughts, not pushing them away, not grabbing onto them, you begin to notice something. They are just thoughts. They come, they go, they change shape, they lose power. What hurts is not the thought itself, but the way you wrap yourself in it, the way you identify with its voice and make it your own. Think of the last time you felt overwhelmed. Was it the situation? Or was it the spiral that followed? Was it what someone did? Or was it the narrative your mind created around it? They must not care about me. I always get left behind. I'm not enough. These aren't facts. They are echoes, old emotional residue, clinging to present moments, coloring them with shadows that don't belong there. There is a different way to live. You can begin to notice without reacting. You can create space between what happens and what you do. With it, you can learn to witness your mind the way you might watch a passing train, noticing the contents of each car without boarding it. This witnessing is not indifference. It is clarity. It is the decision to be free from the chaos you used to call normal. Drama needs participation to survive. It needs your attention, your energy, your belief. But when you stop feeding it, it begins to dissolve. The anxious thought loses its grip. The need to be right softens. The fear of being misunderstood stops defining your identity. You start to see how often you've been chasing shadows, trying to fix things that only existed in your imagination. This doesn't mean your emotions aren't real. They are. But emotions are not commands. They are experiences. They are signals, not verdicts. You can feel hurt without becoming the hurt. You can feel anger without becoming the aggression. You can feel fear without becoming frozen by it. The more you allow feelings to move through you instead of defining you, the more your inner world becomes spacious, calm, and honest. There is a moment, just before you react, where peace lives. It's a small gap, easy to miss, but powerful beyond words. In that moment, you can take a breath. You can see the thought forming, feel the emotion rising, and simply say, I see you. That's it. No fight, no repression, just awareness. That alone is enough to change the entire trajectory of your response. Over time, this simple act of witnessing becomes your refuge. Instead of trying to control every thought or fix every feeling, you begin to trust that you don't have to engage with everything that arises. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every emotion needs a story. Not every discomfort needs to be solved. Some things simply need to be seen and allowed to pass. The inner drama fades not because life stops being complicated, but because you stop complicating it further with your mind. The world outside may still be noisy, but inside, you begin to discover silence. Not the absence of thought, but the presence of spaciousness. A place where you are no longer performing, proving, or pretending, just being. And from this place, your actions become cleaner. Your words become more thoughtful. Your relationships become less reactive. You stop living from defense and start living from depth. You are no longer carried away by every wave. You become the ocean itself, deep, grounded, still beneath the surface. This is the power of the silent witness. It is not a distant, detached self. It is the most intimate part of you. The part that watches with compassion, that allows without judgment, that chooses peace over performance. It is the part of you that cannot be disturbed because it never participates in the drama to begin with. So, the next time your mind begins to spiral, pause. Take a breath. Ask gently, is this real, or is this just a story? Don't rush to answer. Let the question sit in your awareness. And notice what happens to the noise when you stop feeding it. You don't need to control every thought. You only need to stop letting every thought control you. You don't need to silence the mind. You only need to hear what lies beneath it. And you don't need to be the main character of the story your mind is telling. You can step back, watch, listen, and let the drama end without a single fight. The power of staying open through pain. Pain has a way of making us close, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, even energetically. When something hurts, whether it's a sharp betrayal or a quiet loneliness, our instinct is to contract. We pull back, we harden, we build walls and armor, hoping it will protect us from further harm. And for a while, it feels like it helps. It gives us the illusion of control, of strength. But over time, we start to realize that in trying to shield ourselves from pain, we have also walled ourselves off from life. Staying open in the face of pain is one of the most courageous things a human being can do. It goes against every survival instinct we've developed. And yet, in Buddhist teaching, it is exactly in the moments of suffering that our practice becomes most real, most alive. Because anyone can stay open when life is gentle, but to remain soft when everything inside you wants to close, that is the edge of awakening. Pain itself is not the problem. It's the resistance to pain, the refusal to feel, the story we build around it that deepens the suffering. When we say, "This shouldn't be happening," or "I can't take this," we're not just in pain, we're in conflict with pain. And that conflict becomes a second wound layered on top of the first. But when we breathe, soften, and say, "This is here, and I will meet it," something shifts. The pain is still present, but now we are not running from it. We are sitting with it, holding it, allowing it to move through. Think of your heart like a flower. When pain hits, the instinct is to close the petals tight. But what if healing doesn't come from closing, but from allowing the petals to remain open? What if softness isn't weakness, but the very space where pain transforms into wisdom? There's a quiet power in staying open, not because you enjoy the hurt, but because you know that closing only prolongs it. You understand that numbness is not peace, and distance is not healing. Real healing happens when we allow ourselves to feel the full spectrum of being human: grief, longing, disappointment, confusion, without turning away from it. This doesn't mean you become passive. Staying open is not about being a doormat or letting people hurt you unchecked. It's about refusing to let pain define the shape of your heart. It's about staying rooted in your values, even when life tries to shake them. It's about choosing love over fear again and again, even when it would be easier to shut down. In modern psychology, this practice is mirrored in what's called emotional resilience, the ability to stay present with discomfort without becoming overwhelmed by it. But Buddhism takes this one step deeper, not just staying present, but staying loving. Staying open not just as a strategy for coping, but as a path to wisdom, to liberation. When we close, we stop listening to others, to ourselves, to life. Our world becomes smaller, tighter, more afraid. But when we stay open, even in heartbreak, we remain receptive. We hear what's beneath the surface. We learn what pain is here to teach us. We stay available to beauty, even in sorrow. Think of the times you've been hurt deeply. What did you do afterward? Did you shut down? Build walls? Promise yourself never to feel that vulnerable again? Those were survival choices, and they were understandable. But if you look closely, did they bring you peace, or just isolation? Did they protect you, or just prevent you from fully living? There's a radical kind of freedom that comes when you stop needing to be unshakable and instead learn to bend, to feel deeply and still remain whole, to be cracked open and still trust that nothing essential can be taken from you. This is not a denial of pain. It's a transformation of how we hold it. You may cry, you may rage, you may ache in ways that words cannot hold. But beneath it all, there is a presence that remains, a part of you that watches without flinching, that whispers, "You are still here." That silent knowing is what Buddhists call your true nature. It is not harmed by what happens. It does not close. It does not retreat. It is the sky that holds all storms. To stay open is to stay connected to that part of yourself. It is to meet the world with honesty instead of pretense. It is to say, "Yes, this hurts, and I am still willing to be here." That willingness is not a surrender to pain. It's a surrender to reality, to truth, to life. And paradoxically, when you stop running from pain, it softens. When you stop closing, the pain doesn't deepen, it moves. It breathes. It teaches. The more open you are, the more space pain has to move through, and the less likely it is to get stuck. So the next time pain arrives, notice your impulse to harden. Then pause, soften, breathe into the tension. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I let this feeling in? Then listen, gently, without judgment. Let yourself feel, not as a way of drowning in emotion, but as a way of becoming more alive. To live with an open heart is not the easy path, but it is the only path that leads to real peace. Because when you stay open, you stay whole. You remain free. Cutting the rope, ending the tyranny of expectations. We often mistake expectations for connection. We believe that by tying invisible ropes to the people we love, the plans we make, and the outcomes we hope for, we can guarantee a sense of safety or happiness. But over time, these ropes begin to pull. They tighten, they chafe, and eventually, we realize they weren't keeping us close to anything. They were keeping us bound. Expectations are rarely neutral. They come disguised as hope, but they're often rooted in fear. Fear of being let down, of being overlooked, of not being in control. We carry these silent demands into our days, expecting the world to be fair, our friends to read our minds, our efforts to be recognized. And when reality doesn't align with these unspoken scripts, we don't just feel surprised, we feel betrayed. This is the quiet tyranny of expectation. It sets the terms of your peace outside of your own heart. It says, "I'll be okay only if they show up," or "I'll be content only if this goes according to plan." The moment your happiness depends on someone else behaving a certain way, or life unfolding just right, you've handed away your inner freedom. And perhaps the most painful part is that you didn't even realize you were doing it. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, and expectations are just refined forms of attachment, elegant chains wrapped in justification. We believe we are being reasonable, that we deserve appreciation, that we've earned a certain result. But life was never obligated to meet our expectations. People are not here to fulfill our scripts. The world does not owe us alignment with our assumptions. This doesn't mean we stop caring. It doesn't mean we become indifferent. What it means is that we begin to care from a place of clarity, not coercion. Love without the rope. Act without the leash. Give without the hidden contract. When you cut the rope of expectation, you're not abandoning your desire for connection. You're freeing it from the cage of control. The moment you release someone from the responsibility of meeting your expectations is the moment your relationship becomes real. You're no longer interacting with a version of them you've invented. You're meeting them as they are. And that encounter, though sometimes messy and uncertain, is where true presence begins. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff, holding a rope tied to a large stone labeled, "How Life Should Be." Your hand is bleeding from the strain, but you believe if you hold on tighter, maybe the stone will lift. Maybe the world will finally match your vision. But the truth is, the freedom you seek doesn't come from gripping harder. It comes from letting go. Letting go of expectation is not the same as giving up. It's giving in to reality, to the moment, to the truth that you are not in charge of the script. It's trusting that life has its own rhythm, its own wisdom, even when it breaks your plans or confuses your heart. You don't let go because you don't care. You let go because you care too deeply to keep wounding yourself with what isn't. There's a strange relief in admitting that we don't control much. That despite our best efforts, people will still misunderstand us, plans will still fall apart, life will still surprise us. But in that space of not knowing, of surrender, we find something better than certainty. We find peace. When you stop expecting people to act a certain way, you start to see who they really are. When you stop expecting life to be easy, you stop being crushed by its difficulties. When you stop expecting yourself to be perfect, you start to soften toward your own humanity. This practice takes time. Your mind will still whisper, "They should have, and why didn't they?" But now you can pause. You can smile gently at the rope that appears in your hand, and you can decide not to pick it up. You can breathe. You can release. And in that release, you return to the only place where peace is possible, here and now, untethered. Expectation is heavy. It turns ordinary moments into disappointments. It poisons joy by demanding more. But when you cut the rope, you begin to experience life directly, not through the lens of how it should be, but through the clarity of what it is. And often, what is has more beauty and mystery than anything you could have planned. So the next time you feel the tension rising, the frustration, the hurt, the quiet, "This wasn't supposed to happen," ask yourself, what rope am I holding right now? And who told me I had to carry it? You don't need to pretend you don't care. You just need to let go of needing things to go your way in order to care. You don't have to stop loving. You just have to stop demanding that love always feels safe or easy or fair. You don't have to stop dreaming. You just have to let life dream with you, not against you. Cutting the rope is not a one-time act. It's a daily, moment-by-moment return to inner spaciousness, to breathing room, to the quiet power of presence over pressure. Let the world be as it is. Let people be as they are. Let yourself be free. The true non-attachment, love without chains. We've been taught to believe that letting go means not caring. That if you don't hold on tightly to someone or something, it means you're cold, distant, or detached. But real non-attachment is none of those things. In fact, it may be the most intimate and loving way to relate to the world because it asks nothing in return. It holds space without grasping. It offers presence without pressure. It loves without chains. Most of us love with conditions we don't even realize we've set. We love with a quiet demand that we be loved back, that the connection never change, that the other person behaves in ways that make us feel safe and validated. And we call this normal. But what happens when that love is tested, when someone changes or pulls away or no longer meets the story we wrote for them in our minds? We panic, we cling, we suffer, not because love has failed, but because our attachment to how it was supposed to be has crumbled. Non-attachment is not the absence of love. It is the purification of it. It is love stripped of need, of control, of possession. It is loving someone enough to let them be free, even if that freedom leads them away from you. It is caring enough to witness their growth, even when it doesn't follow your expectations. It is knowing that nothing and no one belongs to you, not out of rejection, but out of deep reverence for the impermanent nature of all things. In Buddhist philosophy, clinging is the root of suffering, and nowhere does this truth cut deeper than in the realm of love. We say, "I can't live without you," and think it's romantic. We wrap our identities around relationships, titles, and roles. We confuse closeness with ownership, thinking that more attachment must mean more love. But true love is not about merging until we lose ourselves. It's about standing side by side, whole, aware, free, and choosing each other from that place of spaciousness. Non-attachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being imprisoned by your feelings. It means you can fully enjoy the presence of someone without needing to freeze that moment in time. It means you can mourn a loss deeply, but not let grief consume your sense of self. It means you can hold life in your hands like water, cupped gently, honored fully, but never gripped so tightly that it slips through your fingers. The challenge is that the mind doesn't trust impermanence. It wants something solid, guaranteed, predictable. So it tells us that to be safe, we must hold on. To be worthy, we must be chosen. To be enough, we must be needed. But the truth is, your worth has nothing to do with how long someone stays. And your wholeness isn't measured by how tightly you hold on, but by how gently you can let go. Practicing non-attachment is not about pulling away from life. It's about showing up more fully because you're no longer distracted by the fear of loss. You're no longer tangled in the anxiety of control. You begin to experience each moment, each person, each breath for what it is, not for what you want it to become. You begin to understand that beauty is not in permanence, but in presence, in the ability to be with life while it's here and to bow to it gracefully when it changes. You may still feel the ache of letting go. You may still long for something to last. That's human. That's tender. But you will no longer let that longing turn into bondage. You'll recognize it, breathe through it, and trust that you can feel deeply without falling apart. You'll stop asking life to guarantee your safety and start asking how you can meet life more openly, more honestly, more awake. Imagine loving someone without needing them to complete you. Imagine working toward a goal without basing your identity on the outcome. Imagine enjoying a moment fully without the ache of anticipating its end. That's what non-attachment makes possible. Not a dull existence, but a more vibrant one, because everything is appreciated for what it is, not for how long it lasts. You become like the sky, vast enough to hold whatever passes through. Joy, sorrow, gain, loss. Nothing is denied. Nothing is grasped. Everything is allowed to move. And in that movement, life begins to breathe again. So the next time you find yourself clinging, whether to a person, an idea, or a moment, pause. Ask yourself, am I holding this out of love or out of fear? Am I honoring its essence or trying to possess it? What would it mean to let this be free and to still love it fully? You are not here to trap life. You are here to dance with it, to open your hands and your heart to all that comes, and to release it with grace when it goes. That's not detachment. That's maturity. That's freedom. That's love without chains. Beyond the mask, stop performing for the world. From an early age, we learn to play roles. We become the good student, the obedient child, the successful adult, the agreeable friend. We shape our words, our behaviors, even our personalities to fit the mold others seem to expect. And the more approval we receive, the more we begin to confuse the role with the self. Slowly, subtly, we forget who we are beneath the mask. The performance isn't always loud. It often shows up in small, quiet ways. Smiling when you don't feel joy, nodding in agreement when you want to speak up, overworking to feel valuable, posting highlights online to prove you're okay. Every act becomes part of the show, crafted not for authenticity, but for applause. And even if no one's watching, we perform anyway, because somewhere along the way, we internalize the audience. We carry it with us. But living like this comes with a cost, because no matter how well you perform, it's never enough. There's always another scene to play, another person to impress, another part of yourself to hide. You feel exhausted, not from what you're doing, but from who you're pretending to be. The greatest weight you carry is not the expectations of others. It's the burden of being someone you're not. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering arises not just from clinging, but from falseness, from living out of alignment with our true nature. The self-we, present to the world, becomes a construction, and the more we identify with that construction, the further we drift from the present moment. We begin to live in reaction, not intention. We become so busy managing perceptions that we forget how to simply be. To stop performing doesn't mean you stop showing up in the world. It means you show up differently. You speak from truth, not from image. You act from alignment, not from approval. You offer your presence as it is, not as you think it should be. And in doing so, you reclaim something you may not have felt in a long time: peace. Imagine waking up without the pressure to prove anything, without the need to fix, to perfect, to explain. Imagine allowing silence to be enough, vulnerability to be seen, flaws to exist without shame. This is what it means to live authentically, not to be flawless, but to be whole, not to impress, but to express. This practice is not always comfortable. When you take off the mask, people may not understand. They may pull back. They may prefer the version of you that kept them comfortable. But your job is not to manage their discomfort. Your job is to be free. And freedom requires honesty, not just with others, but with yourself. Ask yourself gently, who am I when no one is watching? What parts of me have I muted to keep the peace? What truths have I buried to be accepted? These are not questions of shame, but of liberation. Because the self you've been hiding isn't broken, it's waiting. Waiting to be lived, not just managed. To be expressed, not just edited. This return to self is a kind of homecoming. You begin to feel less divided. Your inner and outer lives begin to match. The gap between who you are and who you present starts to close. And in that unity, there is strength. A quiet strength that doesn't need performance to feel valid. A steady truth that doesn't need applause to feel real. The world may never stop asking you to perform, but you can stop agreeing to the audition. You can choose authenticity over appearance, presence over polish, truth over theater. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. Your freedom becomes contagious. Your honesty becomes healing. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to earn your worth, to shrink or shine in ways that aren't true, pause. Breathe. Remember that you were never meant to be a character in someone else's play. You were meant to be whole. And being whole is not always neat, but it is always enough. Take off the mask, not to make a statement, but to breathe, to rest, to live. Reclaim your focus, reclaim your life. Your attention is your life. Wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. Your focus is not just a tool of productivity. It is the gateway to your experience of being alive. And yet, in today's world, your attention is under siege. Every ping, every scroll, every notification is not just a distraction. It's a theft. You are being pulled, scattered, fragmented. And over time, you begin to feel blurry, disconnected, exhausted, not because you're doing too much, but because your awareness is split in 1,000 directions. Focus is not just about getting things done. It's about remembering who you are. When you reclaim your focus, you begin to return to yourself. You remember what matters, what nourishes you, what you actually care about beyond the noise. Without focus, even the most meaningful moments slip past unnoticed. With it, even the simplest experience becomes profound. Buddhist practice begins with this premise: the mind left untrained is restless, wandering, unsatisfied. It chases everything and holds onto nothing. But with mindfulness, attention anchored in the present, you begin to see clearly. You begin to live deliberately instead of reactively. You begin to inhabit your life rather than escape it. Reclaiming your focus is a radical act in a distracted culture. It is saying no to the addiction of urgency. It is choosing depth over speed, presence over performance. It is not about perfection. It is about returning again and again to the now, to your breath, to your body, to the quiet moments between demands. We often underestimate how much of our stress comes not from what we're doing, but from the mental clutter we're carrying. The constant intake of opinions, headlines, comparisons. We wake up and scroll through a dozen people's lives before we've even met our own day. We try to meditate, but our minds are echoing with the last 5 conversations we read on social media. We want peace, but we don't create the conditions for peace to arise. Focus is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows with practice and rest. You don't need to fight your distractions, you just need to stop feeding them. Begin small. Take 5 quiet breaths before reaching for your phone. Spend 1 meal without a screen. Set gentle boundaries with your time and energy. Not to restrict your life, but to reclaim it. The mind loves stimulation, but the soul longs for stillness. And when you pause the noise, even briefly, something opens. You hear yourself again. Not the surface chatter, but the deeper voice. The one that remembers what you value, what you love, what brings you peace. That voice has always been there. It's just been drowned out by everything screaming for your attention. In Buddhist philosophy, this is called returning to right attention. Not just paying attention, but paying attention to what liberates, to what heals, to what matters. You begin to filter not by fear of missing out, but by faith in what fills you up. You begin to say, no, thank you, to things that drain you, not out of rejection, but out of reverence for your own clarity. There's a reason ancient wisdom prioritizes silence. Not because the world was ever quiet, but because silence reveals. In silence, the fog begins to clear, and what's left is not more to do, it's more space to be. Reclaiming your focus is not about controlling everything. It's about choosing what you give your life force to. Attention is sacred currency. Where you spend it determines the shape of your reality. If you spend it on worry, you build a world of fear. If you spend it on beauty, on kindness, on presence, you build a life that feels like home. You don't have to escape the world to find peace. You just have to stop letting the world hijack your awareness. The next time you feel overwhelmed, don't ask, what do I need to fix? Ask instead, where is my attention right now? Because most of what feels urgent is not important. And most of what is truly important is quiet. It doesn't scream. It waits for you to return. This is the quiet revolution, coming home to your focus, releasing the need to chase everything, learning to rest in presence, and realizing that, in that space, you are not behind. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Acceptance over resistance, the hidden door to peace. We spend much of our lives fighting, not always out loud, not always with others, but internally, in the quiet spaces of our own minds. We resist what we feel, what we fear, what we didn't ask for. We resist the past we wish we could rewrite, the emotions we don't want to face, the situations that arrive uninvited. Resistance wears many masks: denial, control, perfectionism, even excessive self-help. But underneath all of it is one belief: this moment should not be as it is. That one belief creates immense suffering. Because life keeps moving. It doesn't pause for our preferences. It doesn't consult us before sending heartbreak or loss or uncertainty. And when we fight reality, we lose. Not because we are weak, but because we're using our energy against something that isn't meant to be controlled. The river flows, and we try to swim upstream, convinced that if we just try hard enough, we can reverse the current. But we don't find peace by overpowering life. We find it when we stop resisting and start allowing. Acceptance is not giving up. It is not passivity or defeat. It is a quiet, powerful act of inner alignment. It is the moment you exhale and say, this is what's here, and I will meet it. Acceptance is not agreement. It is presence. It is the choice to show up fully to the life that's actually unfolding, not just the one we planned. In Buddhist wisdom, this is one of the most essential teachings. Whatever has the nature to arise will pass away. Everything, joy, sorrow, clarity, confusion, moves through us like weather across the sky. But when we resist the storm, we become it. We identify with it. We tighten, We try to control what was never ours to begin with. And the tighter we grip, the more it hurts. Acceptance loosens the grip. It doesn't take the pain away, it simply creates space for the pain to breathe, to move, to teach. It says, I don't need to understand everything right now. I don't need to fix this all at once. I can sit with this moment, just as it is, and in that sitting, something softens. A window opens. We begin to feel the peace that doesn't come from solving life, but from surrendering to its mystery. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Studies show that the more we suppress our emotions, the more they control us. The more we deny discomfort, the more it distorts our thinking and behavior. But when we allow our feelings without judgment, they often pass faster. They lose their edge. They become messengers, not threats. Resistance keeps us stuck in the illusion that we must control every detail of our lives to be okay. But acceptance whispers a deeper truth. You are already okay, even here, even in uncertainty, even when it's messy, even when it hurts. You don't need the world to be perfect for you to breathe. You just need to stop holding your breath every time life surprises you. This doesn't mean we don't take action, but action from acceptance is different than action from resistance. Resistance acts from fear, from panic, from the need to escape discomfort at any cost. Acceptance acts from clarity, from a grounded awareness that says, I see this, I feel this, and now I choose. That kind of action is not reactive, it's wise. We often think that acceptance is a finish line we reach once everything is settled. But more often, it's the first step. It's what allows movement to happen at all. As long as you resist what is, you are frozen in a battle with life. But when you say yes to the present, not because it's easy, but because it's here, you begin to flow again. You begin to heal, not by changing the moment, but by no longer needing it to change. So ask yourself gently, where am I resisting right now? What emotion, truth, or circumstance am I refusing to meet? What would happen if I stopped fighting it? Not forever, but just for this breath. Could I soften? Could I listen? Could I trust that even this, too, belongs? Peace is not a place we arrive at after all the pieces fall into place. Peace is what rises when we stop demanding that the pieces be anything other than what they are. When we stop saying, this should be different, and begin saying, this is what's here, and I am here for it. There is a door in every moment of resistance, and that door is called acceptance. Not the kind that silences truth, but the kind that holds truth tenderly. That doesn't rush. That doesn't deny. That simply allows what is to be what it is, long enough for us to truly see it. And what we see clearly, we can begin to understand. And what we understand, we can meet with wisdom. And what we meet with wisdom, we can walk with, not away from. This is how peace begins, not by conquering life, but by bowing to it. Conclusion: coming home to inner freedom. Freedom is not found in the perfect life. It is found in the present one. Not in some distant future where all your plans go smoothly, but right here, in the breath you're taking, in the thoughts you're watching pass, in the quiet courage it takes to let go. True freedom is not loud. It's not about breaking chains you can see, but about dissolving the invisible ones you didn't even know were holding you. So much of what we suffer comes not from what happens, but from how tightly we hold on. Our grip on expectations, identities, roles, outcomes, and the endless performance of trying to be enough. This journey you've taken, through each reflection, has not been about escaping life, but about stepping more fully into it. With clarity, with presence, with a lightness that comes from no longer dragging the weight of every thought, every emotion, every story that says, you must be more. You've seen how the mirror of the mind distorts when smudged by reactivity, and how just one breath of awareness can restore its clarity. You've cut the puppet strings of unseen expectations and rediscovered what it means to move freely from your center. You've opened your hands to let go of control, softened your heart through pain, and found strength not by resisting life, but by allowing it. You've stopped performing, stopped clinging, stopped running, and in doing so, you've come home to yourself. This is not the end of the path. It's the place where the spiral begins again, deeper, clearer, freer. Coming home to inner freedom is not a one-time arrival. It's a practice, a returning, a remembering. Every moment gives you a choice to react or to respond, to grasp or to release, to perform or to be. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not a project to be fixed. You are the witness, the space, the awareness behind all the noise. And every time you pause to breathe instead of react, to observe instead of absorb, to choose presence over performance, you reclaim a little more of yourself. That is the path home, not a place on a map, but a way of being where peace no longer depends on what others do, say, or expect. The journey you've walked is not an escape from the world, but a rediscovery of how to live in it without being consumed by it. You've seen that you can care without clinging, love without chains, act without reacting. And in that space, between stimulus and response, you've uncovered the sacred doorway to peace. There's a kind of quiet power in choosing to return to yourself again and again, no matter how far you've wandered. In choosing to breathe instead of brace, to soften instead of shut down, to release instead of resist. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to return to this breath, to this moment, to this truth, that freedom isn't something you find. It's something you uncover by letting go of everything that isn't you. If something in these words has awakened a deeper stillness in you, if some small part of your heart feels a little more open, a little more clear, that is enough. That's the seed, and you don't have to water it alone. We walk this path together, quietly, intentionally, week by week, breath by breath. So if this reflection has helped you breathe more deeply, I invite you to walk with us again. Subscribe, and let this be your gentle reminder to return again and again to what really matters. If someone in your life is also carrying more than they were meant to, share this with them. Not to teach them, but to walk beside them. Because peace grows when we offer it, not when we hold it in. And when you're ready to take another step, another doorway is waiting in the next reflection. Because this path never ends. It only deepens. Until then, walk slowly. Breathe deeply. Let go gently. And when the noise of the world rises again, and it will, come back here. Not to these words, but to yourself. To the silence beneath your thoughts. To the freedom that was never gone, only waiting for you to remember. Welcome home.